Mean to be a disciple of Jesus Christ? What does it mean to be a disciple of Jesus Christ? We've talked about how disciples of Jesus Christ are called to leave behind old things, leave behind their old life. We've talked about how disciples of Jesus Christ are called to then live their life saying, it's not about me. It's all about Jesus. And last week, Jesus challenged us with the words, and he said, if you want to be my disciple, then you must show unconditional love to others. By this, all men will know that you're my disciples if you show agape, unconditional love to others. We're going to talk today about how disciples listen to and follow Jesus' voice. Disciples listen to and follow Jesus' voice. We're going to be in John chapter 10 today. I'm going to do something I don't normally do, which is probably going to throw me off, probably throw you off. I'm actually going to start today by reading through this whole passage, and then we're going to go back and examine it. Your page is starting in John chapter 10. We're going to start in verse 1. We're talking about how disciples listen to and follow Jesus Christ's voice. We have the text on the screen. If you don't have a Bible with you this morning, there's always some on the pews, by the way. Follow along with me as I read this. These are red letter words. This is Jesus Christ himself talking to you and I this morning. Very truly I tell you, Pharisees, anyone who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in by some other way, is a thief and a robber. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all of his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. Verse 5. But they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize the stranger's voice. Jesus used this as a figure of speech, but the Pharisees did not understand what he was telling them. Verse 7, therefore Jesus said again, very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who have come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and then go out and find good pasture. When I read this week, it confused the tar out of me. It confused, just being honest, I read this multiple times and I thought, what in the world is Jesus talking about? It really, just being honest, it really confused me. And I think one of the reasons it confused me is because I live in 2017, first world, United States. I don't know the first thing about sheep and shepherding and sheeping and all that jazz. I don't know the first thing about it. This is 2017 America. I have never shepherded sheep in my life. So when I hear Jesus' words, I'm like, what is he talking about? But when Jesus preached these words 2,000 years ago in the Middle East, people would have been like, oh yeah, that makes total sense, Jesus. But so I want us to spend a little time talking about what did Jesus mean. It's tough for us because we're not around sheep. We don't shepherd. We don't live in that culture. I want us to spend a minute digging into this passage. First of all, Jesus talks about a sheep pen. That was pretty much the only thing that I understood that he was talking about. He talks about a sheep pen, also called a sheepfold. That is exactly what you think it is. It's what I've seen on Babe the Pig. It's a pretty much a rectangle, and there's one way in. That is what a sheep pen is, also called a sheepfold. Now, in this day and age, there would be permanent sheep pens. People would go, and they'd make sheep pens that were off the chain. They'd have rock walls around them. But there's always one way in. Keep that in mind. There's always one way into the sheep pen. Now, shepherds are pretty awesome. Spend some time reading about shepherds. If a shepherd was out and he's on a journey with his sheep and they're out and about and they're going on a distant journey, the shepherd would actually make sheep pens on the fly. Like they're in the middle of nowhere, a shepherd would go and grab a bunch of thorn bushes and put them all together and make a sheep pen right there on the fly. And there was one way in. And man, shepherds loved their flock so much, shepherds would actually sleep in front of the entrance. Shepherds would actually sleep in front of the entrance. That was their way of saying, ain't nothing coming in here and ain't nothing going out. At our last church, most of y'all know I was a children's pastor. And one night we had what we called the very big sleepover. It was pretty much a lock-in for kids. And there were 60 kids that came. 60 kids in a church like this overnight. I was slugging down coffee like it was going out of style. And so we're there, and part of the thing that was on my heart is, okay, security concerns. Obviously, we see crazy stories in the news, security concerns. Well, there was a man in our church who was a SWAT team officer by day, and then he just attended our church as a layperson. He said, hey, I want to come to your very big sleepover. He said, my son's going, I'd like to come. I'd like to provide security. His name was Buddy. Good old Tennessee name, Buddy. And man, this joker came to our lock-in, and I'll never forget, he came, and the entire night, you know what he did? He just sat in front of the entrance, right there. He had a sleeping bag rolled out. He didn't sleep at all. He said, there's only one really way into this church, one main way in. I'm going to stay right here, so there's nothing going out, and there's nothing coming in. Man, that's what Jesus is saying he does for us. That's what Jesus is saying we've done for us. We belong in the sheep pen of Jesus Christ. If you've called out to Jesus Christ, then guess what? You are in his sheepfold. And one day when I die, and hell and Satan and all evil comes to me and says we want him, Jesus Christ is going to be laying there saying, no, you ain't touching him. He's in my sheep pen. He belongs to me. That is salvation in Jesus Christ right there. But we know as Nazarenes, as Wesleyans, it doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop with just, oh, I'm saved. I'm in Jesus' sheep pen. I got my get out of hell free card. We're good. Jesus expands this passage. Look what he says in verse 3. I love this, and I really had to research this. It says that the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. I had to look into that because I thought, okay, again, what is Jesus talking about? Well, in this day and age, and probably still for shepherding, it wasn't uncommon for multiple shepherds to share a sheep pen together. So Shepherd Bob would show up in the sheep pen, and he's got like 20 sheep, and his 20 sheep would go in. And then Shepherd Steve would show up, and he's got his 20. And then Shepherd Larry, and Shepherd Brian, and Shepherd Benjamin, they'd all show up, and their flocks would be there, and they'd all be intermingled in one sheep pen. But when it was time to go, when it was time to leave, the shepherd would call out, in the midst of all that intermingled sheep, the shepherd would call out, and his sheep's ears would, whoop, they'd perk up, because they knew their shepherd's voice. They knew the shepherd's voice, and they would then follow the shepherd out. The best way I know to describe that, moms in the room, that's maybe open up to all parents. My wife has this ability where if there's like 20 babies crying, she can listen and say, no, that's not Esther. That's not ours crying. Moms, you know what I'm talking about? Dads, you know what I'm talking about? I've known that too. I think, no, I know Grace's voice. I know that's not her throwing a tantrum, thank goodness. That's not Esther. That ability to discern the voice, that's what Jesus is saying we have to do about him. Remember, his disciples know his voice. They listen to it, and they follow it out. Look what Jesus goes on to say in this passage. Jesus talks all the way down in verse 9. He says, I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. I love that, but it's not just about being saved from hell, because look what Jesus says. They come in and they go out. They follow me out to good pasture. And let me tell you what, I don't know what walk of life you're in or what you do for a living or even how old you are, but Jesus Christ has a beautiful, wonderful plan for your life. I'm going to say that again. Jesus Christ has a beautiful plan for your life. The Bible says in Romans 12 that God's will is good, pleasing, and perfect. And you have the ability to be in the center of that will by following his voice, following him to the good pasture that he has for you. You know, 2 fun facts about sheep. And I had to like quadruple check this because I was like, I'm not taking this to the church and then saying something that somebody's going to look up online and prove me wrong. Sheep have the awesome ability to almost completely see behind them without turning their head. I did not know that, and I had to research that and think, okay, no, sheep can see almost 300 degrees. And as a parent, man, I wish I had that ability. Oh my goodness, I'm driving down the road and I got them both in the back seat. I wish I could just say, stop that! I see you. Now you're looking at the mirror. Stop that! Sheep can see behind them without even turning their head. Now keep in mind, in this passage, who are the sheep? You and me. Sheep can see behind them without even really turning their head. Hindsight is clear. Another fun fact about sheep is they have incredible eyesight, but their struggle is that they are far-sighted. Sheep are far-sighted. What does that mean? It means sheep can look in the distance. If the shepherd is leading his flock to like a beautiful, awesome mountain in the distance, the sheep can see that beautiful, awesome mountain. They can see that. They're farsighted. The problem is that sheep can't see the day-to-day steps to get there. They can see it in the distance, but where they struggle and where they really have to listen to the shepherd's voice is step by step how to get there. And keep in mind, I'll say it again, you and I are the sheep in this text. And I think that describes you and I perfectly, especially me. I'm thinking about myself. You know what? I can see behind me pretty clearly. I'm sure you can too. I can see what I did last week. I can see that I used to live in Tennessee a year ago. I can see my past. I can see the road behind me. I can see the road I've traveled. I can see where I've been behind me. That describes me pretty well. And also, you know what? I'll be bold. I can see where the shepherd is leading me. Jesus Christ is leading me to a beautiful place in the distance called everlasting life. I see that in the distance. The problem is, like every other sheep, I struggle with the day in, day out. What steps do I need to take today, shepherd, to get there? And that is why we must listen to his voice. Because 2,000 years ago, when Jesus preached this, keep in mind, he was physically standing there. He was physically standing there teaching these people. And man, wouldn't your Christian walk be so much easier if Jesus was physically with you day in and day out? Think about that. If Jesus was physically next to you, wouldn't your walk be easier? For example, when it was time to pick a college, and I had a list of colleges in front of me, and I was like racking my brain, Jesus, where do you want me to go to college? If Jesus was physically present with me, he could have just been like, pointer finger, that one right there, Trevecca, Nazareth. And I'd be like, really, Trevecca? Thanks, physically present with me, Jesus. That was an easy decision. That did not happen. Or like when I'm out and I'm at the grocery store and Jesus tells me, hey, I want you to go and give a church card to that person and invite them to church, which happens pretty frequently. If Jesus was physically with me, he'd be like, hey, turn your little head. See right that person over there? That's the person I want you to go talk to. And I'd be like, really? Thanks, physically present Jesus. That was a really easy decision to make. But Jesus isn't physically here with me. He's not physically here with you. He's not sitting right next to you. Therefore, we must listen to his voice. Jesus has good pasture that he wants to lead you to, but he is not physically with you at work and at home and all of these places. Therefore, you must listen to his voice. You are not going to get where Jesus wants you to go if you are not intently listening to his voice every single day. Think about your past week. Think about the week you just had. How much time did you spend intently listening to Jesus' voice? Think about your week this last week. If logic tells us, hey, Jesus has a place where I'm supposed to go and he wants me to go and I have to listen to his voice to get there, therefore we must be spending a lot of time listening to his voice. So think about your last week. How much time did you spend intently listening to the good shepherd's voice? An hour? 10 minutes? 5 minutes? There's a beautiful story in the Bible. Oh, I brought something today I want to show you. If you don't get a copy of my letter to the church, if you don't get a copy of this, I send it out every Monday. If you don't get this, come see me after church. Come see me. Because this is the main form of communication for our church. But I'm going to put a story in there that I want you to look up. Most of us have heard it. It's in the Gospel of Luke. And it's on Mary and Martha. Most of us have heard it. Jesus comes to the house. Who's in the house? Jesus is in the house. Jesus shows up, and there's two people. There's Mary and there's Martha. And the Bible says that Mary is, quote, intently listening to Jesus. Jesus is talking, he's yapping away, and there's Mary at Jesus' feet, intently listening to everything he had to say. And then there's Martha. The Bible uses a word about Martha that I love. Martha was, quote, distracted. She was running around like a chicken with her head cut off. Jesus is here. There's so much to do. And the Bible says she was distracted. Mary is listening to Jesus, and Martha is running around distracted. And I'm just going to be honest. I fear that you and I are a bunch of Marthas. I fear we're a bunch of Marthas. We're distracted. We're busy. Jesus is trying to speak to us, but we're distracted and busy. Talk about distraction. The average American watches 5 hours of TV a day. The average American watches 5 hours of TV a day. Talk about a distraction. Hey, you know what? According to Apple, 80 times today is how much the average iPhone user will unlock their iPhone and look at it. 80 times. You talk about being distracted. Hey, there's a bunch of new studies out that show that Americans are choosing, not being forced, choosing to work more hours than they have to. They're making that choice. We're distracted. We're busy. Oh, yeah. And then you throw in the mix your kids. Oh, that's a big one, by the way. If you don't have them yet, just wait. You throw in the mix your kids, and then you throw in the mix your family, and then you throw in the mix the housework and all the chores so that your house doesn't look like a junkyard, and then you throw in yard work, and then you throw in your hobbies, and before you know it, the voice of Jesus Christ that should guide every single step you ever take becomes a 1-hour Sunday morning experience. We're busy. We're distracted. But hear the words of Jesus Christ. He says, I am the good shepherd. My sheep know my voice and follow it. Good pasture. As we get ready to pray and close, I want to challenge you with one question. We're talking about how disciples listen to Jesus' voice and they follow his voice. Are you a Mary or are you a Martha? Are you a Mary or are you a Martha? Are you intently listening to Jesus' voice in your life? Or are you like Martha? Are you busy and distracted? Hey, let me just tell you, if this offends somebody, I'm sorry. Being busy does not make you productive and fruitful. I know so many people who are so busy, always doing something. Being busy does not make you productive. Being busy makes you busy. What is going to make you productive is spending less time being busy and spending more time listening to Jesus Christ's voice. Amen. Would you pray with me? Jesus, I thank you for these red letter words. Your sheep, they know your voice. You call out to them, and they follow you. They follow you to good pasture. And so, Jesus, I pray that you will convict our hearts right now with the question, am I a Mary listening to you, or am I a Martha, busy and distracted? Jesus, help us to simplify our walk with you this week. Help us to remember that we have a simple choice this week. We can choose to be a Mary, or we can choose to be a Martha. That's our choice. Choose to listen to your voice and follow it wherever it may lead, or choose to be a Martha, busy, distracted, and missing out on what you want to tell us. I thank you for this text. In Jesus Christ's name I pray. Amen. Would you stand this morning? Simplify your walk with Jesus Christ this morning. Simplify your walk with Jesus Christ this week. Make it only two choices. You can choose to be a Mary, or you can choose to be a Martha. You can choose to listen to what Jesus says and intently make time to listen, or you can choose to be a Martha, distracted and busy. How we live will decide which one we're going to choose. I love you guys. Would you show agape love, unconditional love to someone around you this morning? You're dismissed.